And today we are going to be discussing about the trend line strategy. So we are going to be how to draw a trend line. You understand? How to draw a trend. Now, one thing we can clearly see on this particular chart is we can see the market. So we'll just can do our top-down analysis from the higher time frame. Now, on this particular higher time frame, we have the monthly time frame. How do we draw our trend line? Look at the charts. You can clearly see it. 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 You can clearly see the chart is moving towards the downside, which simply tells us that the market is a downtrend. Now, on this particular video, we are not actually after analyzing the anticipation for the current day, but we are just here to guide you and teach you how to draw a trend line. Now, in order to draw a trend line, there are two ways to go about it. Now, this is a trend line. This we just did is basically a trend line. But now this is a trend line in order to help us understand the market direction. So if you can see what we simply did, we simply can connect our trend line from this resistance to this resistance, the next lower high. But now if we should connect our trend line from the highest point of the market, we should connect it from this highest point of the market to the next lower high, we'll find out that this trend line is not going to be in good with the market. Drag it alongside with the lowest high that aligns, that doesn't have candlestick body above it, above this particular trend. So you can see we have, that's why we'll connect our trend line from this particular point. You can see we have so clearly you can see we have a neat trend line. Why is it, do we categorize it as a clear trend line? Because it is not above, no candlesticks are above it. We are just simply this high, which is basically the highest point market, lowest, I think it's basically a high. This is a lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. You understand? This is a lower high. This is a lower high. Here also is a lower high, and here is a lower high. Here is also a lower high, same as this. Now, what is our reason picking this particular level? If you look at it clearly, if we draw our trend line from this point to any of these levels, you see they don't connect well. Understand? So we have to draw our trend line from this high to the highest point. That will, in order to help us understand that we are connecting our trend line within this phase. You understand? Let me show you another example with this low. Now we want to pick our trend line maybe from this particular low. You would see our trend line, connect our trend line. If we connect it from this to this, you would see what the reaction will be, and then if we connect it from that point to this point, you will see the reaction. So this is also our low, then this is also our low, this is also our low. So basically I'll pick from that point, we connect our trend line from this particular area to this area. Now, having done this, so this is it. So having done this, we'll be able to understand that we have established our trend line between this area and this area. Now, if you look at it, when you establish your trend line, at times you always get 2 to 3 touches. Understand? So once we're able to get two touches of our trend or three times, then that is an accurate trend line. Now, if you can look at this particular trend line we drew at the bottom on this 1 hour monthly time frame, you can see. Okay, let me help you see it a little bit clear. Okay, good. So if you can see what we simply did here, we fixed our trend line from this particular low to this low, and then after we did that, we were able to connect our trend line very well. Now, if you can see the chart, you'll find out that when we connected it from this particular low to this particular low, it aligned with this low. When we connected it from this high with this high, so that way we are able to understand that this particular trend line is valid, and it can help us to understand what to expect in the market. Now, all of these levels, you would simply just delete it. Let me delete it manually. In fact, what would happen is I would simply just take it back. Okay, fine. I would simply delete all, so we can go about the drawing again. So connected. Okay, very good. So you can see we connected from this zone to this level, which is fine. Then we'll connect our trend line again from this particular higher low. Connect it from this higher low down to this particular point. So you see, we got first touch, we got another touch, we got another touch here. All of these touches helps us to understand the market is playing around this particular trend. You see, market actually tried touching, but didn't get tried touching, tried it. But then you can see it clearly tried touching here and here. Now, these informations are very important in terms of handling how to pick our trend line our trend line. Now, this is basically for a downtrend. Now, we can simply go to the weekly time frame. Let's see what happens. So now, if you can see this weekly time frame, you will clearly understand that the weekly time frame created levels. The weekly time frame created levels for us to understand that peak our trend line breaks. Now, I would want us to see something. If you can look at this trend line, pick from this low. Now, for instance, if you pick your trend line and connect it to this point, you'll find out that there's a break here of candlestick closing below your trend line. We don't want that because we are looking at to predicting what possibly will happen in the market. So we connect it from this low to this next low. We can clearly see that now zone, you see, zone, you see, zone, you see, zone, you see. First touch, we have almost second touch, and we have third touch. That helps us to validate that this is a proper trend line. Now let's implement such again in this particular area. You see, connect our trend line from this low down to this point. Now what can we clearly see? If you can, let me zoom it well. So if you can see clearly what we're doing, when we connected our trend line from this particular low, what happened? It resonated with this one and also this particular level. Now helping our trend line to properly align well. Now let's look for another example. Now this is another trend line we're drawing. Now we're connecting it from this low to this, see how the market aligns with it. So we'll connect our trend line. You see, we'll connect it from this particular week to this week. Now there are two ways to actually connect your trend line. Now, one of the ways you can connect your trend line is connecting your trend line from the body to the body. So now, if you look at this trend line, we connected it from the week to the week. Now, the second way to connect your trend line is connecting it from the body to the body. Now you get almost similar results, but then those are just the two ways you can connect your trend line. You can see we get almost aligned results from the market, but the results just gives you a little difference in price movement. So this is our trend line. This is our trend line from week to week, and this is the second one above is our trend line from body to body. So those are the two ways to connect our trend line. Now if you can see, we go down again and we can see this particular trend line connected from this low to this point. We see connecting our trend line from this low to the higher low, and then we got candlestick break, retest, and all of those. Now we are not actually here to show you how to. I'm not actually on this chart to show you how to enter your trade or any of the sorts. Now I just want to show you how to connect your trend line, resonating them with lows and highs. Now I think we've been able to show you how to connect a lot of trend lines from the lows to the highs. Now let's select levels to connect our trend line in order to get from the highs to the lows. Now if you look at this particular chart, we can simply see we connect our trend line from this point to this high. So from this high to the lower high, and this is our trend line you get. Now let's look for another chart which presents such. We'll connect our trend line also from this high to the lower high, and you can clearly see what happened here. Actually, we got a break. You understand? Another way again, connect our trend line from this high to this point, and we also got a break. Now this is basically just we connecting trend line from resistance point to resistance point, lower resistance point, from the highest resistance point to lower resistance point, higher low resistance point, in order to fix our break of the trend line, in order to understand the direction of the market. Now we are just basically looking at how trend line gives us the break in the market. So if you can see, we've had this break of trend line, we've had this break of trend line here, we also had a break of trend line at this point. Now this is also a break of trend line. We'll connect our trend line from this low to this point. We also have one here. If you can see, connect from this high to the next lower high. We'll drag market across. You see, at this particular level here, market broke trend line. We'll connect it from this low using the body or week to week, body to body. Now I always love to draw my trend line using the week to the week, because that is the lowest point price got to. Now when we can see, you can see what happened here. Connect from this low to this low, for instance, and we got a candlestick break at this point. That is one. We connect from this high to this lower high, we got market break at this point. We connect from this low to this low, and we got a market breaking it at this point. We also connected our low from this low to this low, and we got a market break at this particular area. Now all this just simply depicts the fact that connecting your trend lines, you understand, rightly would really help you and guide you in the right way to take trades in the market. Now at this point, let's look at another trend line. See, we have a resistance point here, we have another resistance point here, and we'll drag it through and see, connecting our highs from our trend line from this high to this high using the week of price. we got a break of trend line at this particular area. We got a break of trend line in this particular area, and we can see the market reaction. Now, one last point we can connect our trend line with. For this particular example, we can connect it from this low to this low to this higher low. So you can see it from this low to this higher low. We fix our trend line, and you can clearly see at this area markets broke that particular trend line. We connected it from this particular low to this particular low, and we got a break of trend line here. Now, a trend line break is basically different from just understanding how to connect your trend line. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper. Let's pick a different market pair. Let's say we'll select the GBP USD. So select the GBP USD pair. So that is an example for the USD, Euro USD. Now let's select the GBP USD pair. Now, if you look at this GBP USD pair, we can simply see a lot of break of trend lines, and let's just select a few. You can see this particular, we connect it from this particular low to this point, which is from this low to the lower high. Now this is a trend line, understand? We'll connect our trend line also again from this particular low to this high. Now, a trend line can be connected in any time frame or on any time frame basically. We also have connecting from this low to this particular point. So I've given a lot of example on how to connect your trend line. You can also go this way, connecting a trend line from this particular point to this point. Also, you can get one from this particular low to this lower high. So all of this is how to connect your trend line. What's the trend line on the chart? On the chart, on the chart, on the chart, on the chart. So this is how to connect your trend line, basically. Now, all of these trend lines are how to connect trend lines to understand the selling pressure of the market. Now, let's try to pick how to connect your trend line for a trend line break to the upside. Now, this is one you can see here clearly. This connecting from our resistance point to lower high, and this gives us a break of trend line to the upside. This trend line basically guides us to see points for change of character or reversals. So basically this one, and basically those are the levels we can see for trend line breaks for a buy. I think we have also another one here, trend line break, connecting from this high to this particular lower high, and we can get a trend line break. So these are to list a few examples on how to connect a trend line. Now, I'll be giving detailed examples also on how to connect a trend line for a buy and how to connect the trend line for a sell in the market, and how to identify an entry for a sell or for a buy. That will be coming up in my next video on the topic trend line. So do stay fixed, and you'll see the videos uploads on how to connect your trend line to take a buy or to take a sell in the market. But for this particular video, I believe I've been able to help you understand how to connect your trend line in the market. Now, in order to give you a chart, a kind of graphical example on how to connect your trend line. Now we simply have what we call price push to the upside. That is all we just did. Now we simply connect our trend line from this low to this low, this lower high. And what do? We simply drag our trend across. Now once we're able to fix our trend line with 2 points, you are able to understand that is a trend line. 2 to 3 touches and you get a trend line. This is for a trend line to the upside. Now let's give another example. Okay, I'll delete this. Now, in order to get an example for a trend line to the downside, so we have this push to the downside. Once you're able to connect your touches from, let's say, 1, 2 touches, so you connect it from 1 resistance, 2, it's a trend line, you understand? So all you need to get is at least minimum of 2 touches. So when you have, sometimes you also have the third level resonating with your trend line, you understand? So that helps you to understand that you are able to fix a trend line correctly. Connecting your trend line basically 1 to 2 touches, sometimes 2 to 3 touches basically. So you can see on the chart we replicated such at this particular area. For instance, you can see connecting our trend line 1 to 2 touches, and that is it. We have another one. This particular area 1 to 2 touches. Now since this low line at this point, you see candlestick actually reacts to it, so we can connect it to this point where we get the clear break. So this is how to basically connect your trend line on the market chart. You have a wonderful day, guys. Peace, all love.